Hi, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, all. Welcome to Dell Technologies Leadership Roundtable Series Session 2. This roundtable will bring together marquee AI analytic leaders talking about multiple aspects of how AI is transforming the art and science of customer experience. The topic for today's session is Insights and Intelligence with AI, specifically talking about Reset the Customer Experience with AI, the art of possible. And this roundtable will examine how enterprises have implemented AI driven customer experience systems and, in turn, reduced churn, boosted revenue, and lower cost to serve. For this session today, we have an expert line of speakers who will be talking about the things here. We have Mathangi Shri, the head of data science at GoFood Gojek. We have Javed Abdulla, who is the data science leader at Uber, and we have Saurabh Agrawal, the head of analytics for Lenskart. The session will be moderated by Vivekanand Manjeri. He's also called Vivek. He is the brand director, client solutions business for Dell Technologies. He leads the overall product marketing for Dell's commercial client portfolio, including the desktops, the Latitude notebooks, the Dell displays, peripherals, and so on and so forth. And in this role, Vivek is responsible for new product introductions, product positioning, pricing, market share, growth programs, sales forecasting, and sales enablement. So I welcome everyone as part of this roundtable. And Vivek, over to you for this for the fantastic thoughts from the leaders who have here for this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Kapil, for the generous introductions. A very good afternoon to all our participants and our esteemed panelists who've joined us for this very interesting conversation which we'll have today. Uh, Without elaborating much on the topic itself, my first objective for today was to set a little bit of context before we get into some of the themes and the conversations which I wanted to have with all the panelists that have joined us. At Dell Technologies, we strongly believe that the next decade for most enterprises and companies that are operating in various markets will be a decade where the power of data is going to play a key role in whether they are successful in getting the right products and services in their respective marketplaces. The reason is fairly obvious to a lot of us, and most of the people who will be joining us today would appreciate that you know there is enough and more data that your organizations have today, be it in a B2B business or in a B2C business. The question is, what do you do with the data? Now, to answer that question, it's very important to understand that most companies, including Dell Technologies, have been talking about the need for organizations to digitally transform their businesses. What we mean by that is, if you look back at what IT has done 10 years ago versus what IT is doing today, the key takeaway is IT is now at the core of what most companies are doing, which means businesses run on the backbone of technology. It is through technology that you interface with customers. It is through technology that you launch new products and services in your market, which means your IT touch points with your customer, which we'll talk about today more, as well as how your products and services come across in a digital platform, are very critical to your success. So, therefore, the need to digitally transform is both an opportunity and a challenge for most organizations. And some of the key technologies that are enabling digital transformation, the top of list is definitely artificial intelligence, machine learning. You have augmented virtual reality, and you have a host of others, including IoT, for example. Today, we'll focus more on what artificial intelligence can do, but more specifically, in the context of measuring customer experience, what is the role artificial intelligence can play, is playing, and what the future looks like. And I have eminent panelists with me today who can throw more light on some of the conversations we'll have specific to their industry. So I am really looking forward to today's conversation. More to as a moderator, but more importantly also as a learner. And I hope that all of you can also learn a lot and share some of your thoughts today. So having said that, I will what I will want to do first is, have a first round of conversation around how we all think, specifically each of the panelists think, the way customer experience has been measured over the last decade or so. How has that changed in context of measuring customer experience, and how that customer experience is getting mapped to the customer's buying journey itself? So therefore, I would like to hear from my all the co-panelists here on what are their thoughts around how customer experience measurement has changed over the last decade. And with that, I will open the floor to comments. Let's go around the table. Uh, I'll invite the lady first. Mathangi, if you could share your thoughts, and we'll go across the table.
Thanks, Vivek, and hello, everyone. Glad to meet you. So, customer experience measurement is the specific question. So, earlier when we think of customer experience, we generally think of call center, contact centers, not promoter score, CSAT, and things like that. But with technology occupying center stage, like Vivek said, as well as AI being a critical component of it, customer experience is almost measured at the end of every journey a user takes, right? Be it in terms of a transaction journey, be it in terms of user browsing some of these things. Think about platforms, the typical OTT platforms, right? So there's barely any time you speak to a customer service agent. How does customer experience get measured? Through a lot of implicit data, so to say, at the at the end of every journey, how long a customer spends watching a movie, how well your recommendations are taken, with a lot of experiments also at the back end, and a constant improvement from the organization to meeting towards customer needs. uh, uh, Especially with respect to GoFood, where I'm heading the data team at, we do measure customer experience at at the end of every transaction, as a golden standard. The customer does get to rate their experience overall, but we do also look at very internal metric to customer experience was, whether somebody who came on the app, did they go without ordering anything, or when they ordered, were we able to meet and complete the journey? Did we complete that on time? Did we let the customer raise a ticket to the call center? That's considered, even raising a ticket to a call center is considered a negative experience. So how implicitly can we drive the customer experience, and how can we measure this and constantly monitor, constantly instrument data, constantly look at ways to think about how the customer is growing, so to say, with the product? That's how I think, Vivek, on this.
No, I think great points there. I think I really take away two call outs from your response. One is implicit measurement. You definitely called out the fact that you, most cases, don't get to speak, customers don't get to speak to the agent, but then how do businesses use the buying journey and close loop across, just not just the point of interaction, but what happens after? I think very interesting points, Matangi. Thank you. I'll move on to maybe I'll pass it on to Saurabh for him to share his initial thoughts on this.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So, so I think so over the last decade, the customer experience concept has evolved, and Matangi rightly said that earlier there used to be very long format of surveys being sent after a transaction is completed, and people used to measure CSAT and NPS. While those KPIs still exist, I think so. Uh, Measurement of the journey experience post transaction has moved to the in journey experience. So what I mean to say is, say with the digital journey, you capture a lot of information. Say I just visited the website and then I left. So people will ask, how was your experience? Or for example, if you go for a meditation app and you do a 30-minute session or 10-minute session, at the end it will say, how was your session today? Yes, no, and then it will ask you if it was good, then it'll ask you to rate the app as well.
Hmm.
So today, public rating has more importance to in-house measurement because it helps you create your brand as well, which is a big thing which has evolved. So to me, and that's where employer branding, customer branding is taking towards, like, looking more than employee NPS or employee surveys. It has moved to Glassdoor ratings, and people go there and fill in. So public ratings also define your customer experience and what people look at. In terms of B2B products, you can see things like Trustpilot have come up. Zomato's rating, or say a Google Store locator rating is more very important for us. Like,
Mm.
while at Lenskart, we see we look at three set. We look at internal experience measurement frameworks, and we look at public measurement frameworks. One is definitely our store rating, app ratings, plus our 800 plus stores, whatever people are rated out there. So for us, monitoring, and then Magic Pin comes up, and all the other platforms come up. So measurement of customer opinion is becoming a big thing, and it also delves into an ORM concept of organizational reputation management. So all of this together is kind of the voice of the customer, and yeah, things have evolved quite a bit, and I would say the measurement has also become very tiny. When I say very tiny is when people start filling in long format surveys. It's like tick tick tick, and if you are on the three, then you start giving threes everywhere. If you're on the one, see, like, so it's almost like, to say that, like, a honeybee takes a nectar from a flower and you don't kill the flower with it. So it's as simple as that. You have to take that survey or a question during the good experience and then just go off.
Got it. I mean, sort of very, very interesting points. What really stuck in my head was the fact that you called out it's no longer about traditional matrices like CSAT or NPS alone. You need a internal and an external view to really get the sentiment of the customer. And the other very important part is the measurement goes beyond just, I think, the customer experience and their feedback. It's also a lot about what they think about your company's brand image. I think very interesting comments. Thanks for sharing that. Look forward to more deeper conversations as we move forward. Javed, over to you. What would be your perspectives on this question?
Yeah, thanks, Vivek. Hello, everyone. Vivek, I think it's a pretty broad question, especially considering the last 10 years. And if I consider this 10 years in the industry that currently I am working in, which is majorly the mobility and delivery, I would say the world has changed entirely, and not just the customer experience part in this industry, but also the lifestyles, right? How
Mm.
customers are living their life with respect to mobility and food delivery, etc. Right? Just to take an example, I think if I talk about myself 10 years back, if I had to order food, I would just make a phone call to a nearby restaurant and they would deliver a food, right? If I would like, probably I would order again. If I won't like, I would probably never order again, like that. Now, what happens for a food delivery, whenever it happens, then these companies, they gather feedback about whether it was delivered on time or not, whether the food was hot, cold, the preparation was good or not, how the behavior of the delivery guy, everything. So as Saurabh mentioned, that there is a constant feedback available in terms of data in the entire customer journey, right? So now this constant feedback loop is acting almost every second, I would say, across millions and billions of order. And then there are analysts sitting somewhere in these companies analyzing all this data and providing active and constant recommendations about improvements in all these aspects. And the result is basically a better personalized offer for customer. If the customers are unhappy, these companies know that immediately, right? And they try to compensate it with the help of, let's say, coupons, some cashback offer, maybe some free food sometime. So this has been helping a lot in terms of retaining customers, knowing what they want, and hence giving them very relevant offers for their future orders. And if they become unhappy with a particular order with a particular restaurant, then there are ways to still keep them engaged and not, let them completely churned away. So I see like a huge difference in the overall experience, and also the ease of ordering food or a ride has increased so much in past 10 years that, again, as a customer myself, I hardly used to order from outside. Even like, say, 10 years is far, even 2 3 5 years back. But now it has been like really frequent that we just order from outside any time. Like you don't have to think much now.
Got it. No, I think very good initial points here. I think again, what I again wanted to call out from your answer was uh, more data is available and more data real time across almost millions of transactions happening, which means companies. And I was about to talk about this. You have a very good opportunity to make quick changes to what you're offering. You can launch new products, get feedback really quickly. Gone are the days when you launched a product, you did a focus group for a month.
Yeah.
All those traditional, I think, life cycles and approaches uh, can be accelerated, which means companies which do it better are able to have a very targeted personalized offer in the market, versus somebody who's a little behind may suddenly feel completely disrupted, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is very relevant, which I think you called out. I mean, I think great opening comments to the, I think, the question, right? And just from my own perspective, I just realized that most of you, I think Uber may be an exception, and pardon me if I'm incorrect here, are largely in B2C businesses. I come from a traditional B2B company, but even within our at Dell Technologies, right, we use a lot of data, and specifically at the point of enabling a sales maker when he's speaking to customer. Today we have so much data that any quote that we send, which means a product, be it a notebook or a desktop, or for that matter a server that we sell, when the salesperson is actually sending out a quotation to an end customer, there are recommendation engines that are available that will tell him, hey, you know what, given the history of this customer, you should probably be either positioning this particular product or pricing it there, given his history of how he talks to you, and what are the historical buying patterns. We are able to recommend and make sales have an intelligent conversation to close sales, for example, right? So I think what we are all jointly saying is, the power of data is there for with us, and the tools are also there. I mean, it is very important to have a structured approach. It is time that, specifically from a customer experience perspective, referring to the topic, we think beyond the traditional KPIs. There is a huge opportunity that's out there for us to make a difference in the marketplace if we channelize and adopt the right tools and technologies. I think very good opening conversation. Let me just kind of get to my next question here right now. As companies, you all called out the fact that today there is a lot of data available, and a lot of you are already in what I call as digital natives, which have started online, largely had a digital face to your end customers. But think about a company which is for example, a brick and mortar company, or a traditional enterprise company. What we have observed is, over the last 18 months, because of what the pandemic has brought upon, the environment has actually changed a lot. Now being online is almost a necessity for most businesses, right? And maybe the future, depending on how things pan out, there could be a hybrid model of operating. But at least the last 18 months have forced companies to have a very digital face to their customers. Now, from a customer experience perspective, specifically around acquiring new customers, what are some of the learnings that you've had, or what are your perspectives around acquiring new customers when companies have had to suddenly embark on a digital phase? And if you could share some thoughts around that, on customer acquisition, and how that has been enabled faster through digital technologies, that will be an interesting perspective to have from each of you. uh Saurabh, do you want to go first, and then we can go
Yeah.
around the table?
So I wish I had the answer how to drive customer acquisition, because having growth is a big thing and it's on the agenda of every startup. But I'll take an example not from the brick and mortar. I'll take an example from a brick and mortar. So recently, I have a doctor friend. She opened up a pathological lab, and again, the customer acquisition problem was again felt by them. And what interestingly, and she said, Saurabh, why don't you work in digital and also why don't you help me out? And what I realized is, having like the first 1 week, we struggled to even get yourself live, the center live onto Google Maps. Okay, they do a physical verification on it, and then getting the ratings and reviews of it. So today, brick and mortar companies identity is the digital is the Google Maps identity, to be honest, and the number of reviews, the photographs, the search engine. And today, individual doctors who have their own centers and all need to spend say about 10, 20, 50,000 rupees to make sure they are coming up in the search results on different areas. Now that's a problem, I would say. Like Aadhaar is your national identity, and it's like you need to be present, whether it's on LinkedIn, and also businesses have to be present. So making sure you are present, you're discoverable, and you come up. Okay, today doctors are not discovered by calling up a doctor friend. They are discovered on a site like Practo and by looking at the ratings. A lot of new doctors also, they go about taking up these things. So what I'm saying is, small business, ultra small business, individuals, entrepreneurs, everyone have to manage customer experience numbers. But to me, what I'm seeing is the emergence of public presence rating has become such a large part of the identity, which actually impacts the existence.
Got it.
And it's a big thing on everyone's mind. And there is a biasness also. Like, can you give the customer money or some discounts for giving positive ratings? Yes, you could do it for your internal rating system, because it's not like you cannot influence them too much on public platforms, because then it can backfire as well. So uh, so yeah, especially with omni-channel, this is a big thing when companies are starting only, like in Amazon and all. Marketplace have thrived. Like, to me, if you compare, why do people a lot go on Amazon is to start with the ratings, because they have a very good rating system on the products. Then it comes on to the ecosystem of Amazon and all these websites, which is there. And today, people have gone even two steps further, and especially in ride sharing, where the rider is rating the customer and the customer is rating the rider, and both of them have been priced basis their ratings. Okay,
Interesting.
so to me, things have become much more scientific, and there's a lot of data being and algorithms running behind the scenes, capturing it and taking everything to the far next level.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, thanks for sharing your thoughts there, Saurabh. I think, again, the search relevance being very critical for brick and mortar companies. I think I completely agree with you on that. And the other very interesting part is the example you gave, especially in, for example, in ride sharing, where you rate both ways. You get customers get good suppliers, and vice versa, based on how well they have. So the platform playing a very key role in managing a marketplace, irrespective of be it transportation or be it any buying selling engine like Amazon. I think very important. Again, you are underscoring the fact that in a digital business, I think the power of data is very important, both for the service provider, I think the platform itself, as well as the customers, right? Depending on which vertical. Very, very interesting thoughts. I will pass it over to Mathangi next, and take her comments on this.
Yeah, sure. So, to answer on the question on how can businesses acquire more customers, I'll add on to what Saurabh said, right? So, rating as a mechanism to acquire customers is fundamentally key, right? Anytime you get a food delivery or you get anything delivered at home, the guy waits more so to say that, more so to impress on the fact that we need to give them a good rating so that they get more orders, etc. Right? So rating is an engine of growth, right? Not only as an engine of improving your service, etc. So it's become fairly critical to acquisition. That's one thing. Yeah, so some of these marketplaces are also taking to the next level of how do you help individual businesses to get more efficient. So in terms of food, and these are restaurants which do not have a lot of power of technology, etc., but the platform kind of becomes the godmother or godfather to help them get more orders, to help them become more discoverable in the process, play also an advisory role of improving the efficiency, etc., right? So same thing with the example that Saurabh gave on Practo. I don't know when like a few years back, maybe 5 6 years back, we would just go to a clinic, and that's about it, right? How many reviews we would have read about the doctor today? In fact, though, you can actually see very classic example of what kind of doctor it is, and what kind of advice the doctor gives, what is their mode of thinking, etc. Before you actually pick a doctor on this. And it has its both ways. Some of these professional things also, it gets a lot to judgment, and whether different people pick up certain doctors based on how well they speak also becomes important. But nevertheless, that's how acquisition happens today. The marketplace, more or less, right? Whether it is goods that is getting delivered, that's also primarily driven by e-commerce in India, which is a marketplace, and that is kind of helping also individual brick and mortar stores to say to come up the curve. Or professionals who are coming onto a platform, there the hyper local platform, or the marketplace kind of gives feedback to these merchants or etc. to improve their rating. One anecdote I want to quote here. So much so that food restaurants are so dependent on the online marketplace that they in fact change their names so that they get indexed better, right? So they, depending on how users search, they actually put those names, like they do their SEO in their own way, and the real estate they have for their SEO is their name. So in a lot of cases, we have seen restaurants kind of changing their names based on what dish people order or what dish people generally look out for. So that's the change that digital space has given to it, and so the acquisition of customers have changed, based on this. I don't know, maybe before Swiggy or Zomato in India, I don't know how many merchants would have advertised in a digital medium, or thought about getting more clicks and impressions through digital medium, or some of the classic parlance like your CPC, etc., would become important to their business. I doubt that. At the maximum, they would have given an offer, let the word spread, and people get a free burger or free something, so on. But today, even for a restaurant owner, it's very important that they are digitally savvy. They know how to run their digital marketing to acquire more customers. So that's the possibly the equilibrium has fundamentally shifted, from the restaurants to the marketplace. But some of these marketplaces are also very cognizant of the fact that they exist because of the merchants. It's not the other way, and hence they facilitate acquisition for those merchants as well.
Fantastic. I think, yeah, I did take away a few interesting things. Specifically, I think you did call out that it is important for most businesses to be having a digital marketing expertise in house, or they need to get that support to stay relevant. I think that clearly comes out. You did also make references, I think, to the fact that the whole process of rating and how do you interpret the rating is pretty subjective. Again, you don't know the customer sentiment behind what goes in, but that is where I believe strongly that building some sort of, I think, tools like artificial intelligence and how well we architect and make them learn to mimic how we interpret data. If somebody was if a human was to actually do it, to augment decision making would be the key. And that's something that I'm seeing a lot in some of our larger customers, not just in India, but in Asia Pacific, and even some of the Western world, right? But yeah, thank you so much for your comments, Mathangi. Javed, over to you. Would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely, Vivek. I'll just like to build upon the points mentioned by Mathangi towards the shift on the digital marketing about acquisition of the customer.
Mhm.
So I think it's a very well known, very common fact that most of the companies, in fact, all the companies are moving towards the digital channel for their acquisition and marketing needs. I'll just why it's happening. I'll just try to put my philosophical points in kind of simplifying this shift, right, and why this phenomenon is taking place. And this is something from my own experiences of working in eBay. So just about 2 years back, I was leading eBay's North America's marketing, data science, and analytics. So basically, I have seen that change. Right, every quarter the numbers have changed, and the number that I'm talking about is the marketing investment on traditional channels like radio, television, billboard, to digital channels like social media, Google paid search, etc. Right. So what happens in that traditional channel earlier, companies used to spend, for example, TV ads, right? And there used to be a belief that if you show TV ads in certain cities and do not show in other cities, then you will get more adoption to your product or services in those cities. But how much exactly, it's is still very, very hard to measure. Like companies do set up some experiment based on zip code level, based on different cities level, even countries level. But our measurements about these investments are still, I would say, not at an acceptable level where you can create a very clear ROI and understand how much you're paying for acquisition of one customer. But if you
Mhm.
talk the same towards a digital channel, right? For example, Google paid search, and Google provides you data that if they show a result on their search, right? If a customer is clicking on that result, then going to the basically advertiser's website, making a purchase or not. So they map the entire journey. So they share the data between each other and they show this entire journey. Okay, this is the user who clicked and he ultimately bought at your platform. Whereas this is one user who clicked, came to your website, browsed, but did not buy anything. Same thing Facebook does. On top of that, they also create persona of their users and they tell these companies, okay, this is a user who is a hobbyist, okay, and he has an interest in music. So we will send these users only to those products which involve musical instruments or something related to music, and they customize their ads for the company for those users also. So it's a huge gain for these companies, right? First, they are getting this benefit of customizations, and they know what they're paying for rather than being blinded compared to TV and radio that they do not know. They used to spend, I would say, more than 50% just on blind belief that some benefit will come. Whereas here, they can convert their investment on a simple metric, something like cost per acquisition, or like CPC, what Mathangi was also talking about, right? So
Yeah.
these are advancements that have become possible only because of this like very innovative product development, and the backbone is data and AI. So I strongly believe in the world. I think it's a extremely big reinforcement about real this biggest realization that what you can measure you can change. So I think every company is moving in that direction now.
Sure. I think great point there. I think of all what you said, I think the one that clearly I think people should take away today is ROI measurement can be clearly attributed to investments in when you talk, do things digitally. And one of my personal experiences has been today, any marketing plan that comes to decision makers, irrespective of whether you're in B2B or B2C, the first thing you look forward is how much are you spending on digital. And most geographies, if you take that percentage on 100 is easily north of 50%, right? So any plan which is showing like I'm investing 10 or 15% in digital, you immediately get people raising their eyebrows and asking what are you doing, right? So I completely agree with what you're saying there. The other point which is very relevant is, obviously, in addition to clear measurement of ROI, it also gives you the opportunity to customize, micro segment, personalize, right? So you exactly know what are you giving to whom and what are their preferences. So I think great comments from all of you. Let's just switch gears a little bit here. All of you did kind of talk about the power of technology and how that can be used to look at data. In that construct, what I wanted to talk about next and have all of your comments is, at Dell Technologies, I did talk about it when I set the context. When I set the context that we believe the next decade is all around what technology infrastructure is required to enable digital transformation. And there is, at Dell we call it a four pillared approach, but for simplicity it is what is happening at the client or the edge, what is your data center technology, then what is your application development layer, and then around all of this, how are you ensuring your data is secure, right? So it is security in application layer, your infrastructure modernization, and then obviously the transformation that happens on the edge of the workforce itself. So in that context, one clear industry insight that has come out is, tomorrow most organizations will have to make quick decisions closer to the point at which data is generated, and those decisions need to be made real time, so that be it decision makers or in some cases the product or the services can be automatically changed through the power of technology or AI, so that you are customizing and course correcting your approach or your go to market on the product or the services end. So the intelligent edge is a concept we talk about a lot. So in that framework, or in that construct, what are some of your thoughts around the what tools are, your respective industries looking at to make the edge more intelligent so that decision making is faster? And what is your thoughts on, at an infrastructure and an application layer, what are some of the changes that you are seeing? If you can throw some lights on that, that will be very good. I will pass it on first now to Javed. I'm just doing the round one by one. So Javed, if you could start off, and then we will go around to Saurabh and Mathangi.
Yeah, sure. I think so for real-time decisions, I think some real-time dashboards seem to be super important. One is that. So basically, we have so our work involved catching fraud and basically denying them a particular type of service, right? And some of the simplest solutions revolve around creating the behavioral aspects, converting them into metric, and then create a dashboard, then put a cut over a two sigma range or something like basically the clear outlier detection, right? But sometimes the data is so nonlinear in Uber's world that this like very simple tools and simple conventional techniques don't work out, right? So we have built a lot of models based on neural networks, which are mainly used for the nonlinear kind of data. And then rather than building very simple dashboards, we build engineering products here. So they're very customized products. So I cannot give you the name of very common open-ended sources, but essentially the concept is same. So use neural network models, figure out the signals which you want to basically find out and take action on, and then write rules on the values of those signals. So those signals are then converted into features, and these features are made available at every checkpoint where you want to take the decisions. These checkpoints can include like when somebody is trying to request a ride, or when someone's trying to order a food, or when the food is actually delivered, when payment is made. So at a different level, we have these different checks, right? And the features values are provided at every checkpoint. So based on those features value, you write simple rules and you take the real-time action. So this is a very standard way of handling the real-time situations. And then there are some other ways where we are using some innovative product. And I think we had to do it a lot, especially during the pandemic situation. So the company had to be very creative and innovative about continuing the business, because Uber was one of the companies which were hit like really hard by the pandemic, right? And in order to continue the business, we had to be very creative about ensuring that taking an Uber ride is safe. So how do you ensure that? You first make sure that the cabs which are being provided, that they are segregated from the middle. So in the picture you show, okay, this is the cab which is coming to pick you, and if you show the picture inside, it shows a glass partition, right? The ACs are off. And then before a rider takes a ride, Uber asks the rider to take their picture and upload it immediately in the app. So then when they do it, then the system checks real time, okay, this is the same person who's taking the ride and he is wearing a mask or not. And same is checked at the driver side also. So, and then once a person is wearing a mask, then we also do an identification. The person is same who has booked the ride, who has his account with us, and is the same person is taking the ride, right? So now it's making it more challenging that you have a mask on and you have to detect that the person is same. There is an identity theft threat possible, okay, which we need to avoid. So there are multiple layer of challenges if you want to be more creative in terms of keep your business going, if you want to be more real time. And these are all very data and AI kind of challenges, like very specifically they are being solved with the help of this complex modeling and product.
Got it. Okay, very interesting. I think uh, I'm sure a lot of us at some point during the pandemic may have even used some of your services. So thanks for sharing that. Over to you, Saurabh, if you can share your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think so. You talked about the intelligent edge and intelligent core concepts. So there are two ways to look at it. Okay, in the B2C business, when the customer is experiencing the app or this thing, today we are experiencing almost always on initiatives. Okay, so to me, the intelligent edge is almost like you're using your app and then you are buying things. One of our features called, which is the AR feature, which is very popular. We use a lot of intelligent edge features out there. And while it used to be like using part of it on internet and part of it on the edge, recently we did an interesting campaign with Big Boss Tamil, where we had a fashion show and all, where we had to deploy our iPads and all out there. And with Big Boss, there is no external communication you can have. So we had to switch on the internet, switch off the internet completely. And that's first time we faced that, okay, how do you make sure your
Yeah.
application runs without it? We had to convert entire thing 100% off internet. And it was an interesting use case for us, but it also helps us upgrade our product so that it kind of gives us a seamless experience while there is an internet always there. So that's one part of the story which I would say on the customer B2C side. While B2C is a big area for us, a lot of the core moat which Lenskart has created is on the manufacturing side. Okay, and when you are working on the manufacturing side with sophisticated technologies, where you are getting the orders and you are assembling it and all, while Amazon delivers in 2 3 days, Lenskart also delivers in 2 3 days, where the entire specs and the assembly and manufacturing happens, and then you ship it also. So that's where we require a lot of strong MES and digital tracking solutions, which can be disrupted if there is even a 10-minute downtime of live internet, and how we manage the processes. So to me, the intelligent edge concept really comes at the manufacturing side, because it becomes very business critical and disrupts. So yeah, those are my views and our experience on the B2B and B2C side.
Sure, sure. Very, very relevant. In fact, you mentioned about the Big Boss example. I was actually reminded of something around, very similar lines, right? In terms of how, just because you can't take data out, you in my the general hypothesis is most of the AI engines today, as long as the data is not in regulated verticals, can run on the cloud, right? Or a private cloud at max. But there are a lot of cases where, especially for example in non-regulated industries, retail being one example, there are various others where we've increasingly seen companies come to us and say, you know what, in a particular case, I have to move the data and process it at the edge itself. I cannot take it to the cloud. In healthcare is one of the examples where more and more companies are having to invest in tools and technologies at a device level, as well as beyond the device, on what app runs on the device and how you create that app, to make sure that you can digest the data quickly, do whatever heavy processing, run the model which is already intelligent enough, has done multiple cycles of learning, and so it's an intelligent platform which is running on a very powerful device and can quickly generate that insight at the point where the data is being captured. For example, an MRI data, or any kind of graphic or CT scan data, which a lot of hospitals today have. So and what I'm trying to bring out is a lot of these are use cases which are now cutting across various industry verticals. But very, very good point there, sort of. Over to you, Matangi. Would love to hear from you.
Sure. Um, uh, Javed and Saurabh had covered some of the points, very relevant here. I'll just add to some of these things. One, overall on the infrastructure, like you said, Vivek, most of the things can be run in cloud. Uh, Prior to this generation, if I can call, like maybe few years back, like 5 to 6 years back at least, there was the concept of it's a big deal about having your own dedicated centers and running less on cloud. But now with all the encryption and everything available, cloud both for instrumenting the data, open source for that, running your real-time models, or even building some of those have gone to technologies that just exist and do a plug and play. Right, so that's on the infrastructure side. Edge is interesting. I was involved with a startup a few years back, and one of the things that we were trying to do is to figure out location and indoor positioning for users without reaching out to the cloud for a couple of reasons. One, most of the cases the internet is not on, so even without internet, using some of the sensor signals and signals outside the environment of the user's phone. Can we locate where the user is, and can we benefit and do hyperlocal targeting, etc., for that user? This was prior to the prevalence of Geo the way it is. I think Geo changed the game quite a bit. The necessity of having a connection, like the problem of having an internet connection for a large part does not exist, but for some of the things, right? Let's take payment in a flight, for instance. That still, for whatever reason, flight in flight they don't accept, they only accept cash. They don't accept your UPI payments or something like that.
Right.
That's one case, that was explored on how it can be for edge. There are also certain device level personalizations which can run on the device, which companies explored.
Mhm.
For example, it can be very specific to the user, to their location, or to their certain transaction history, etc., which need not go to the cloud to get processed. Or this can be sensitive data that can come in. Let's take device logs, for example, right? So uh, based on regulatory requirements, you can't pump some of these data into the server, but take a decision right on the user's phone. These are large scale micro decisions, but built as a big data, but deployed as small data within the edge devices. Those are some of the things that I can think of, and tying it back to the customer experience also, right? These kind of also have changed the way Bharat, so to say, interact with the Bharat segment, as it is called, interact with some of the apps. They've also, from that perspective, moved a little away from the Western way of solving things, and customized some of these, be it a non-delivery product, or be it payment, etc., to what is available out there in India, and Edge has played a critical role in that.
Sure. I think very, very, very good point you raised, right? Large scale micro decision making. I mean, that is something that, we've also seen at different scales in different industries. But it's good to see that, some of it is even validated in digital first industries. And large enterprises, definitely, it's a huge opportunity. And just to add to what you said, be the intelligent edge is also enabled largely because we are all seeing, the opportunity that 5G is going to bring, more from a network standpoint, right? And at Dell Technologies, we are definitely very bullish about what opportunities it will bring to companies, because to the possibilities that come with 5G in its mature state, we all know about it. But I think great commentary from all of you. I think we have another 10 more minutes, right? So I wanted to definitely cover another very important question, which I'll pass it across the table here. I think predicting customer behavior is something all of you touched upon, but what I wanted to focus on now is, when we say we want to predict customer behavior, do a lot of companies also think about uh, building different customer personas, which is similar to, I think, segmentation, but I think personas goes a little beyond just segmentation. And what are some of the new advancements looking into future that you foresee to come along, be it in your industry or across industries? Over to you, Matangi.
Okay. So the natural answer to your question is personalization. Moving from persona to personalization, right? So segmentation to persona to personalization. Uh, the other, future. So a lot of this, whether we consume content, whether we are trying to buy something, a lot of times we don't do pre-decision, right? Like in the customer journey, customer buying cycle, they're not thinking of choices even before they open the app, because intuitively we know, once we open the app or website, we know the app will tell us what to do, and we will do it, right? So the era of where you do research on choices and then you come to the platform to finalize your choices is gone. It is the
Mm.
platform actually making the choices for you, right? So that's one, and that's current, that's not even future. In terms of future, I do think there is a shift from recommendation to generation, I would like to call it. It is about not picking up from set of choices that you have, which is what currently we are doing, which is what your recommendation algorithms are doing. They are personalizing it, so on and so forth. But from here towards generation of content itself, right? So what if movie was made for you, just for you, not recommended for you, right? For example. Or what if a music album, instead of Spotify recommending a set of music for you, could actually go ahead and make music for you at that point in time. I don't know if you can do that on food, so I'll refrain from commenting on it. Whether somebody can prepare a meal out of the menu card, for you. But we are seeing, we will be seeing a movement to generation, right? A lot of this will, the combination will get assembled for you, and it is something made just for you, right? At one point, customization meant it, right? Customization means I'll customize that product for you, right? And personalization took it to the next level. Like when there is innumerous number of choices, I will get the choice done for you. But this will be next level where it's not, it is infinite customization. It's just made keeping, for example, Vivek in mind, and then there's something delivered just for Vivek. As long as the cost is very near zero of generating those options, I think it can be consumed.
Okay, very interesting. Quite futuristic, but I'm sure with the power of AI and all the technologies and great experts like what we have on the panel, anything is possible. Over to you, Saurabh.
So, so personalization and combination is a challenge which we face at Lenskart quite a bit because we have 10,000 frames. There are 5 to 6 glasses. And if you go by the number of combinations of the frame number, like the eye number which we have, eyesight power, like somebody has plus, minus, and then you don't have a discrete range. It's a continuous range. Some will have 1.5, 1.75, 1.8, cylindrical, spherical, progressive, plus people would need bifocal. So we face a lot of challenge in making it. In fact, I would say a food delivery would be much simpler menu than what we deal with because you have to take the frames, you have to take the size, you have to assemble it and then give it. But while we kind of manage it through personalization and all, it's about the frame. What's the right frame and size we recommend you, and what looks best on you. So, and that's where you have to go into omni-channel mode. Okay, you tried something, then you go and touch and feel it, and then come back. So it's a problem which we are also trying to figure out how to solve. But that's where I would say an offline business can become a digital first business and then can influence. In our case, we have a network of 800 plus stores, and 80% of the store sale is influenced online. So we see that in the last 24 hours, somebody must have downloaded an app or something and he wants an eye test to be done or something to be done. So it's a challenge and an opportunity both. Why a challenge? Because it's a very, very hard problem to solve. When you have standard products like books and all, or Netflix, where you can map things to things, it's easier to do. When it becomes taste and it becomes fitting, like clothes, also nobody can feel the fabric. Okay, nobody cares about it. Also, you kind of just can describe okay, cotton and this silk cotton and all of those. So the touch and feel, how do you take care of it is the challenge. But it helps. People who are becoming digital first and going omni-channel are the ones who are able to disrupt the business. And at some point in time, Lenskart was like 1/5 the size of Titan Eye. Today, it is like 3 times the size of Titan Eye. And that's how people are changing. If you see Uniqlo example, you would visit any store, they have such a good app. They will have QR codes. So I think so. QR codes was one of the biggest things, which was such a interesting thing, which took things from offline to online and online to offline by taking the people across. So yeah, there is a lot of innovation to be done. There is a lot of innovation has been done by a recommendation engine, but how do you get the taste of the person, understand it, and then not get into the funneling effect also is a thing. While I might like Chinese every time, but I might get bored with Chinese. It's
Hmm.
almost like when I used to go to my in-laws, first time I told them that I like rasgulla, and for the next 30 meals I used to get rasgullas only, and I started hating rasgullas after 6 months. So I hope my wife is not listening.
Very interesting. Okay, yeah, that But I think you make a good point. I think what you're also saying is, in certain industries, how narrow do you get, and will at what point do you think it might be, I, I hate to word the use redundant, but may not be customized for the right frame of mind that the customer might be in at that point in time. You don't know, but I think, yeah, got what you're trying to get across. I think you're basically saying there has to be a balance somewhere in how much of uh, narrowing down of options do you do while you recommend.
In fact, Vivek, there are new retail companies who are coming up. So there is this whole Steve Jobs way of dressing. Okay, so people just dress like black t-shirts or white t-shirts every day. So that's another school that, okay, I don't need choice. I just need to follow so that I free
Hmm.
up my brain for making decision making. So I was just looking at that startup. I don't remember the name, but they said that they sell you 20 packs of the same t-shirt color. Okay, or like 20, 7 packs of that, so that you just buy that seven white shirts or five pair of blue socks and stuff. But I think so pandemic might have hit them very hard, where nobody is now going to office and wearing it. So, but yeah, there are these two separate thoughts, that one, people are going very simple, and another set is people are going too personalized. So, because to be honest, it takes more time to buy something online than offline. You go to a store in 10-15 minutes, you will buy.
Hmm.
So it's almost like you start buying saris online. That's the amount of time you spend. You have to read reviews. You have to think about which are the places you have to go and shop. So
Got
my
it.
wife will kill me today.
Yeah. I hope that doesn't happen. But interesting, very interesting comments, though. Thanks. So, Javed, I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, Vivek, I think most of the points on personalization have been covered by Mathangi and Saurabh. I think if I speak from the mobility and delivery, and Saurabh mentioned it very rightly that it's much easier for delivery. So we are not, I would say in a simpler word, I don't think personalization is one of the top priorities for this industry. It's
Okay.
mostly the magical customer experience and avoiding fraud risk, abusing, etc. Right? Because for personalization for a ride, it's like a person will either go regularly either to their office or to home and maybe a few location in a city, right? So these information are easily available just on a factual basis. So when you try to search, it shows the Uber app will show you those common destination on the top, right? And similarly for food business, we just show some of the options which are ordered frequently. We in fact ask user which kind of food you like, what you prefer and all, and they do mention it. So accordingly, we're able to show them the restaurants in the nearby area. So yeah, it's a much simpler problem, I would say, to solve in this industry.
Okay. Thanks. I think, again, thanks for your comments. I just wanted to add, just from, a B2B in a PC business, for example, right? Uh, if I were to see how do we go about personalization, it is actually broadly, we look at, while everybody thinks every PC is the same, I would like to think that, even within a B2B buyer base, there are unique personas. And a lot of the work which my team does is, how do you think about, each individual enterprise buyer. The research that we are privy to says that in most cases, when somebody wants to buy a PC, they pretty much know what they want. There is so much literature, not just for PC, any kind of hardware, for example, which is most people consider within the IT world to be highly commoditized. And there's so much knowledge already available, and people would uh, rather read up more online through content and, opinion on technologies that's available. And which means, by the time a sales maker actually makes a call to any customer, they have a clear opinion, either because of past experience of having associated with your brand, or because of the amount of content that's already being provided to them online. So the research phase of, or education part of it, is already done. So a lot of the work that we do is to ensure that how do we stay relevant in the most frequently consulted, digital platforms or digital real estate that's available. And how do we differentiate ourselves, because there's not much of differentiation if you think, a PC, beyond just the processor, the display when it's a notebook, or the the basic storage, etc. But there are so many other things which are small nuances which we try to communicate. So that's the big challenge that we face. And how do you communicate that very crisply, because nobody wants to scroll through 3 or 4 page links at one shot. So communication and crisp communication through online platforms to ensure that you are already gaining mind share when the customer is educating himself is very critical in my industry. And but so when the sales maker actually makes the call, to some level you have managed a level of differentiation, and you're able to get the right value in terms of pricing when that discussion progresses ahead. So yeah, what I'm trying to tell you is, I think in different industries especially, the problems are a little different, I think, but we are fundamentally trying to figure out what can we do from a customer experience perspective to stay relevant and to provide differentiation uh, uh, in terms of what products and services we bring to the market. But excellent points which all of you made. Just I know we probably got 15 minutes, and I'm also sensitive or conscious that we'll have to take some questions from our attendees today. I just wanted to have closing remarks from all of you, right? Quick pulse check in terms of, you know do we all say that artificial intelligence and some of these technologies are going to play a key role as we look into the future? Any challenges that you think should be addressed moving forward, if we are to fully leverage what opportunity that awaits our own businesses? We'll just quickly go through the panelists. Any closing remarks on that comment I just made? Javed, over to you.
Yeah, I think so. The answer is definitely an emphatic yes. It's definitely going to be more and more AI because there will be more and more data. There will be more and more product which are built on the backbone of availability of this data, right? I think the caveat and challenges would only be how we use this data because data can be deceptive. I've said that in my previous roundtable discussions also, and I have experienced this in day-to-day cases within my team, within other teams, that sometimes data cannot be taken at a face value. There has to be a right level of maturity and discernibility in the analysts who work on the data to to basically actually take out the right messaging and don't get fooled by what they are just seeing. And also the other thing is as a practice, maybe it's kind of a become a fashion kind of thing that I see, that where there are very simpler solution available which are totally
Mm.
fact based. We can make fact based decision, and still people are trying to build very sophisticated and complex models. So that is one caveat where I would advise the new data practitioners to stay away from. Like, try to focus on solving the problem using data and not necessarily by using very fashionable, fancy, or complex technologies.
Got it. Thank you. Saurabh, your comments?
So I think so. So far, there are companies who are digital first, and there will be companies who are AI first. Okay, so that transition will start happening, and people who are AI first, digital is now like everyone needs to be digital. Okay, there'll be digital, like AI first companies will be the one who will be surviving very well. But having said that, building AI outside your products will kind of become out of fashion. It will be in the core. That's what I mean. Like Uber uses intelligent algorithms to decide the ride sharing. We use it for our recommendations and for AR. So that will become imperative. One thing which we'll all need to be very conscious about is managing the customer information sensitively, uh, because the customer experience measurement is public today. It's not only to you, and you will be rated by that. And your ability to drive growth, the cost of customer acquisition will be high if you have poor ratings. It will be low. It will be more organic if you have good ratings and all. So that will be a key aspect to be watching out. And it'll be all omni-channel. Okay, there'll be not two worlds of digital and uh, physical world. It's all blended into each other. That's what we see every day.
Got it. Thank you so much, Saurabh. Over to you, Mathangi.
Yeah, Vivek, when you started, you said IT is the core of all the organization. I think the world in a few years, if not now, is going to be, data led, and possibly what I would like to call that phase as data led and human governed. Maybe like in any technology adoption, at one point it was data led without any governance, and we saw some of the products like Day, etc. Doing injustice to the community at large, etc. Bots got over hyped, so that hype cycle will come down, but it will come down to a point where it is more data led, but with human governance. I think that's where we are heading towards. Algorithms for a lot of the organization will become a strategic advantage. Even today, when product roadmaps, etc., are getting made, a lot of time gets spent on okay, what features different organizations have. But from there, it'll become more algorithmic centric because there's only so many users you have in a market, and assume large companies, sharing the users between them. Like let's say that three
Right.
major companies in an industry, there are only so many users, there are only so many merchants, or there's so many only ecosystem. So algorithm could become true differentiator. Algorithm which is
Mm.
tuned towards the business and user experience will become the key.
Excellent. I think great comments. And thank you for sharing your closing remarks. I'll try to summarize this part of the conversation as we close. But uh, I'd like to take some questions that have just come from our audience at the second half uh, of the session today. So I'm just going through the list. I'll just pass call out the question, and then we can all have your opinion and comments. I think the first question is around as organizations increase the adoption of AI into customer experience programs. Uh, Having an enterprise class data science platform will be key to enabling the transformation of the customer experience journey. The question is, can the panelists share some insights on how organizations are addressing this, i.e., the platform creation? Are you building it yourself? Are you buying it off the shelf? Uh, Saurabh, do you want to give your comments on this?
So, see, I think so. In our case, we are leveraging cloud technologies, mostly AWS or Google, GCP to do it. Today, I don't think so. There are two types of companies. It depends on, are you an adopter, and then you will have your own secret sauce to scale up. Like in case of AR, we have done a lot of our in-house development, but for the regular data science work, we leverage the tools as a Lego blocks. Around the customer experience part, sentiment analysis, reviews, ratings are quite much advanced areas where there's a lot of startup tools available to leverage, and it can take you from zero to at least a good decent maturity, and then you can take it to the next level by your own secret algorithms and stuff. So yeah.
Got it. Anybody else would like to share any insight on this question?
I would like to comment. I think build versus buy kind of coexists. It's not a one or the other answer. It's a spectrum. Certain cases you do a buy, and certain you do a build. The answer to that lies in the core IP. If it forms the core IP of the company, it's going to give you the strategic advantage. It's a long-term thing. It's an optimization process, like in many data science models. It's better to build if you have the little bit of time. Build does take time. If you have to assemble an in-house team, and if you have to give them direction, and build does take time. And if that particular initiative can wait for the time, then it's kind of build. And if it is also long term and strategic, you build. But if you want to get on something, and very early stage companies, they want to prove the market value, then it becomes a buy.
Got it. Great. I think that we got some very good, recommendations from our panelists today. I'll move on to the next question, which is interesting around the, I think I won't use the word talent gap, but the hybrid talent that's available. I think the question specifically says, as customer experience professionals, they come from a world which was in some organizations, they come from a legacy world where they were adopting traditional technologies and processes to go about measurements, which some of you alluded to. Now today, the need of the hour is to embrace technologies like AI and work with the newer crop of professionals who are well versed with analytics and uh, artificial intelligence technology. So the question is, how are organizations taking steps to enable the enablement of this mix of talent, and how are these new organizations shaping up?
Yeah, I can take up this.
Go for it.
So I think I'd like to understand the question a little bit better, but this is my understanding. It's like the people, those who face actually the customers, right? Who deal with the customers. It is a very separate team. It's a front facing team of customer service agents versus the people who actually create the strategies of how the customer problem should be handled, or what should the agent tell when customer reports this problem, and what should be the following action after that, right? So I think the front facing team, I'm not seeing any kind of changes in that. They're just, these are the people who are very empathetic, who can speak well. So that's typical call center qualities, right? So they continue to be the same, while the team which is acting in the back end, which is creating the strategy, there
Mhm.
are some initiatives which we usually do to make sure that they are well versed in both the areas. Is that two things: one is be the customer, so they are highly encouraged to act as a customer, understand the pain point by directly going through it. So there are various competitions which are done at organization level, where people are encouraged to take Uber rides. People are encouraged to act as drivers and complete, let's say, at least 100 rides as a driver in a quarter or 6 months or so, right? If you are in eBay, then people are encouraged to sell so that you understand what are the problems sellers are facing. Buy from eBay. In fact, company give dedicated budget, and employees can reimburse just if they shop from their own companies, right? So these are just to ensure and encourage that you try to understand the pain points of a customer. Then there are competition about the technical advancements. So there are brown bag session, there are training sessions when the uh, new technology is being implemented in certain areas. Then there are a lot of knowledge sessions. There are also encouragement about solving certain problems using better methodologies and newer techniques, so that it may either result some cost savings or faster resolution, etc. So yeah, all these different kind of competitions and encouragement towards being the customer is helping basically create talent which are well versed in both kind of things.
Got it. Thank you so much, Javed, for sharing that insight. There's one more question that has come up, which is interesting. It says, any insights the panelists can share on how is the balance between digital and human aspect in customer service shaping up, specifically on what companies are doing to ensure that the emotional quotient still holds true.
I can take this question.
Go,
I
sure,
guess
Mathangi, go for it.
I spent quite a bit of time with a company called 24/7.ai, where our primary thing was to make customer experience more intuitive with respect to customer service, especially, right? So there are various tools and technologies available. One around the area of how do you respect the human in the loop, so to say. For example, let's say if you're modifying a process, you still keep human support as your fallback option that also could help you learn the process. And at this point, I also want to say that uh, getting into a voice bot or chat bot is not just about intelligence, right? It's not just about cracking the AI model there. It's a lot more than that. For instance, Alan Turing kind of referred this as a phase of, at one point he predicted the year 2000 would be the year where we will not be able to distinguish the difference between a human bot and a human agent and a bot, right? But we, from that perspective, these kind of bots kind of processes have evolved. We are no more measuring on whether the conversation is more human like or not, to a point where whether it's a bot or a human or it's a hybrid model, then the customer's issues got resolved or not, right? So, and hence it is important for companies which kind of convert their customer service process into more AI driven, uh, to be respectful for once about the current existing process, to understand the nuances of solving a customer service process, and then use AI at the right place to solve it along with design and user experience. That's one part of the story, as you botify, so to say, if I can take the liberty to say that process. The second one is, as a lot of human agents are taking the support, one of the things that technology can help is analyze some of these large corpus of chat data or large corpus of voice data, come up with things like what is working in a chat, what is not working in a chat, how empathetic, for example, certain agents are, how courteous they are, how do you compare your high performing agents with your low performing agents, and then train the agents to get better at their job. So it is not like the fundamental shift here is to not look these two blocks as human driven human agents as well as bots as two separate boxes, but kind of look at them together and mutually help each other, would kind of make your customer service interactions leverage the power of AI, and also the emotional quotient that you talked about will come in there.
Got it. Great. I think very, very relevant comments made by all the panelists. I think we are almost about to close today's session. I think I personally did learn a lot from Mathangi, Saurabh, and Javed, more perspectives around what is happening within their industries and how, customer experience is being looked at with a fresh lens, and what the future holds. I think very, very thought provoking conversation. Just wanted to summarize the closing remarks, which I think had very interesting points. I think I would just want to simplify it. I think Javed said, in future, one of the things to watch out for is, don't over engineer, don't over complicate AI, keep it simple. uh, I clearly remember, I think Saurabh calling out that the future will be AI first companies, not digital first, AI first. Very interesting comment there. Mathangi definitely said, I think data led uh, companies with human governance, I think, is the way forward. All, I think, good food for thought. But most importantly, I think we had a very good conversation today. I hope all the attendees today took away a lot of notes, and more importantly, had a good understanding of what customer experience will mean in the future. I took 2 page of notes, right? So I have this habit, so I found it very interesting, and I think thought provoking more than anything. Thank you for the opportunity uh, from all of you to engage in this conversation. uh, have a great day, and good luck with all your digital transformation and adoption of technologies as you embark on measuring customer experience and succeed in your respective industries and marketplaces. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.